Bring the meeting to order at 7 o'clock and I'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I like Norm's little cheer. Oh, there's Norm!
Hi, Norm.
All right, Clerk Cody, would you do roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Milky,
Here.
Clerk Cody here, Treasurer Rice,
Here.
Trustee Bills,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Hauk,
Here.
Trustee Thering.
Here.
All are here.
It's been a good attendance board, hasn't it?
Yeah, you know, really, it has.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that too tonight.
So with that, we have an agenda in front of us with 2 new business items and rest of the normal stuff. So I'll be happy to entertain any motions.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Hauk. I think I heard support by Brown first. Sorry, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
Smith. All right, support by Clerk Cody. Any discussion about the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. A motion to approve the agenda passes unanimously. We have no presentations or public hearings tonight. That brings us to public comment, which is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up public comment at 7:01.
Hello, Board. I'm Norm Worley, 5685 Carriage Lane in Union Township. The reason I'm here tonight is because you're going to be voting on resolution number 2 for Carriage Lane to be considered as a special assessment district for the repaving of our road. So there was just a few things that I wanted to come in and share with you prior to your discussion tonight. First of all, I want to really thank Kim Smith. She's been phenomenal in helping out this whole process. You know, as you know, this is like an 18-step process. This is step 6 tonight. So Kim's been great in terms of giving us guidance and direction, and always getting information to me in a timely manner, answering all the questions. So I really appreciate that, Kim. So I'm the representative for our neighborhood, along with Tim Warner. So we've been gathering up the support of the neighbors in order to do this special assessment district. And so far, what we have is 94% of all the lot owners in agreement of wanting to have this approved, which is pretty phenomenal when you consider that you only need the 51% in order to do this. A couple of things that the residents did request that I bring forth to you. One is that they would really like to see this be done this year. One, in terms of for containing costs, and also because of the necessity of the repair. I think this was last done probably in the late 90s, maybe even late 80s when we had our road done last. So it's a really needed repair. But in order for that to be done, from what I gather from Kim, who provided us with the schedule as well as to these steps, is that the stars and the planets have to all align together in order to get this done by the end of the year. So we're just hoping we can do that. And the second thing that the residents would request is that for some of the people, you know, the cost certainly is a factor. It's $6,943 per lot owner, so that it gets added on to the tax bill. And they would like to have that amortized over 10 years, if that's possible. That would at least sort of spread out the costs for the neighborhood. There's another piece that I want to discuss with you too, but I think I'll save that for the closing comments, because I think this might be something for the board to consider in the future regarding, you know, subdivisions, footing the whole bill. And we talked about that very briefly in our previous board, but I thought I'd bring it up after the closing comments tonight. So thank you for your consideration tonight, and it's good seeing everyone again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Norm. No parable? Sorry.
No parable or analogy tonight.
We'll give public comment just another minute in case someone wants to step forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:05. That brings us to report boards and comments, appointments. I did get an email out, trustee Bill's schedule is not working for being the liaison for the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, and asked that someone else be able to step in that role because of the hardship that it would create her at work. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't mean to say anything inappropriate if I did there, but I didn't know if people on our board have thought about this. We do have a meeting coming up with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe this next Thursday, the 16th, Thursday?
Yeah, that's right, Thursday, the 16th.
And it's somewhere in the morning, which is,
It's around 10:50, isn't it, Mark?
I believe so.
I believe so,
Something
too.
like that.
So
I
I'm-
have my calendar with me.
Yeah, I know I leave my work at 10, so.
so I've attended a lot of the functions regarding liaison role, but just because I felt it was a good thing to do. And Bill attended a 2% distribution with me. But it'd be nice to have a formal representative appointed to that as a liaison. So I don't know if this board has thoughts. Most of the meetings are going to be during the day. And that's probably the difficult part, because we all have day jobs. I have a lot of flexibility, but
I did talk to my husband, and if I can get a little more information as to how often the meetings and stuff are, there's a possibility that I could, but
there's typically.
I would have to.
Typically for formal invites during the year with having to do with 2%. So that would be discussions about, with the tribe and what their desires are. And then secondly, as a follow-up to that, is if any distributions, if they're awarded to the township that we participate in. Outside of that, a lot of it has to do with just building relationships, I think. Attending like their annual powwow and the Remembrance Day and those types of things.
Yep.
Is that helpful?
I know Norm spent a lot of time with them, when Norm's really the one that got our relationship going again with them.
Yep.
And I'm happy to play whatever role I'm able to, but I didn't know if there was someone that wanted to step up and take that. If we're not ready to appoint someone tonight, I'll be happy to go this next week, because I've got it in my calendar already, in absence of someone else being appointed. Sounds to me like you need to talk to family and.
Yeah, I need to figure out childcare.
Okay.
So.
Do you-
I was still
Trustee
planning.
Bills indicate should be there next week.
Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
Oh, you did? My apologies.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be
I
there.
missed that in your email
Yeah, I'm
today.
leaving my job at 10, so I can be there.
Okay, I was
before
feeling
then.
more urgency to fill it prior to that because
No,
of
I
that.
understand that it'll take a minute, so.
Okay,
I'm not gonna drop it.
okay.
But I
Thank
would
you
like
for that
to, I
clarification.
would like to let you know that I can't just keep
Doing it.
busting out of work. That's a half a day. I can't really go.
Right, I
so.
understand. All right, well, we'll keep that on our radar, and maybe by the next meeting, we'll have a resolution to that appointment. Any other issues with current list of boards and commissions? Other than I'll lift up our ZBA and EDA again. And with that, we'll go to board reports. I think I started with trustee Hauk last time, so we'll go to trustee Brown.
Well, the city will meet this coming Monday, so since our last meeting, there hasn't been, so the next meeting, we'll have a report. I'll be there Monday.
Trustee Bills?
Yes, sir. I was at the regular meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners last night. They released their fiscal year 22 recommended budget, which I plan on perusing and in my spare time. But I think they really just they approved a lot of stuff that involved
grants they've obtained. I don't see that we get a lot of grants here, and so that's something that really kind of is interesting to me, that maybe we need to have somebody here that knows how to write as many grants as they seem to get. They get a ton of grants. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money. So, I don't know, that's the only thing that really stuck out.
Very good.
No.
Thank-
I think they actually have someone
Whose job is,
whose job is that there. And
Well,
I
that
know,
might be a
I know
good-
eventually, I think there was talk of one, but
I mean,
here.
that's a good investment to make, I think, if you're gonna be getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. Pay somebody $40,000 to write grants or whatever, I don't know. I'm just saying, this is not the place to make
Yeah.
that. This is not my report. So I just thought, that's what stuck out. There were a lot of grants.
good for our county.
Yes, sir.
Yay.
Yeah.
And their budget for next year is going up. And one thing that was cool is they're giving everybody in the county that works for them 2.5% raise this year. So, that's good, and then their budget went up to 24 million. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but they said it's an increase about 10 or 15% or something. There's some one-time stuff in there, but,
The CARES Act is certainly helping with that.
yeah.
Yeah. Trustee Therian,
Nothing to report at this time.
Treasurer Rice.
14th, taxes are due. So please get those in. Can pay online, or you can come and bring them in. I would not focus on trying to get them in the mail and get them here, rely on that. I would actually bring them in. It's getting close to tax time, due date, and postmark is not honored. So please get them in. So that's all I have here.
Very good. Trustee Howe?
I went to a road commission meeting on the 26th of August. It was a real short meeting. Manager wasn't there, so they had a real short meeting. The only thing that really stood out was next year, actually, they're gonna do a request, to start requesting this fall, how we've always done that gravel road, like where they do one gravel road and then gravel road refurbishment for the county. There's a gravel shortage, so they're having a hard time getting the 21 fiscal year done. So what they're wanting is, they're gonna wanna know how many miles of road each township is gonna do, so they can let the gravel pits know that, okay, next year we're gonna need 100 tons instead of 80 or whatever, so then they'll have them, or they'll have the supply there. So, other than that, that's the only thing that stood out.
So they're asking us to put a guesstimate together?
They
for
want
them?
us to get something, they're gonna send a request out to all the
Oh, good.
townships. So,
Clerk Cody? And I don't have a lot either. We dealt with some of the EDA stuff last time, and we've not had a meeting since then, but we will soon. So with that, we'll move to consent agenda. Be happy to entertain any motions.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Support?
We have a motion by Bills, support by Rice. Who had the warrants this month?
I did. Everything looked fine, but I just have a question for Lisa Cody. She probably knows, Trustee Cody, that, would be able
Clerk.
to, Clerk Cody.
there we go.
Sorry, I'm gonna work on this, okay? At least I called her Cody and not Smith, okay? Bottom line, there was a guy, oh God. Oh boy, I'm never gonna live that down, I'll tell you that right now, but, there's an expense for this guy, I can't remember his name, and I didn't have my phone, so I didn't take a picture, but, that we're paying to sit in an election for $75 an hour. And we had to pay him like $2,000 some for doing updates and sitting in an election.
That's CMS.
That's CMS.
Yes.
Why are we paying him 15 hours worth of work on election day to sit there? Why isn't he on call for that?
Good question.
That's the only question I have on that. I mean, I just thought it was ridiculous.
It was 21.75.
Yeah.
Is the primary purpose to make sure if internet goes down or something? Because you're not, those
Yeah.
machines aren't on the network or anything, right? So,
No, it was,
just for internet.
No, it's not internet. It's not hooked to the internet. It was, we had some issues with the books on my, I think it was 2016, 2018. And everything that could possibly break and go down, broke and went down, and it was like, he was my lifesaver on that one.
Okay, and so how much would it, maybe we should explore how much it would cost to have some guy on their team come over and help us within a half hour that day if there was a problem. I don't know, I'm just saying. It just seems like that's an excruciating waste of money.
I didn't realize it was that much until I actually seen the bill this
Yeah,
time.
$75 an hour, I was like, that's as
And then
much
I
as CMS
questioned-
gets. I didn't know it was CMS.
I questioned it myself
Okay,
this time, because I didn't.
it seems
know.
exorbitant, but I'm just saying.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
the, we have an agreement with CMS. This is considered out-of-scope work, and that's their out-of-scope rate,
Right.
for one. And it's been our experience that, I mean, on election day, you need things, it's one of these things that's more like insurance, risk management. Something goes bad on election day, you don't have time to call somebody whose office is somewhere and have them come down and try to figure something out, and you got people, you know, trying to vote and all this kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons we do it. So the main reason we do it is so that we have immediate resolution on issues that are negatively affecting the ability of citizens to vote.
I have one more question then regarding that, if I could, because it's interesting. Does the city do that too? For all their precincts?
They have an IT on, like, they have their own IT staff.
So maybe we should
Two
ask them-
things.
Okay.
Two things. Yes, they have their own IT staff. And beyond that, I don't know what the city does. You'd have to ask them. And our support is not by precinct, it's covering, you know, the whole election process, whether there's 2 or 3 precincts, and whether we've combined any or not. It's, you know, it's a, it would be my advice that it's, or my opinion, I guess, that while expensive, it's better than the system's going down and people not being able to vote in a timely manner. That's all.
I'll look into it now.
Well, it just seems like the city, if they have an IT on staff, it's not like everybody's gonna break down at the same time.
Oh,
It's
4
happened.
precincts, everything broke down at the same time, and I physically cannot be in 4 buildings at once, and it was
It's happened.
very difficult. But we figured it out, but this, now I'm getting the hang of everything a little bit better, so I'm thinking maybe we'll have them on call if that's possible, or just, you know, maybe 2 hours out of the entire day, the end and the beginning.
I just thought I'd bring it up. Everything else looked like it was in order. Except we're still paying way too much for supplies. I'm sorry.
All right, well, we have a motion on the floor to approve consent agenda. Any other discussion then? All right, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes for consent agenda. That takes us to new business. Carriage Hill Estates, number 1 and 2, subdivision paving special assessment district resolution number 2. Be happy if our manager would like to introduce this.
Thank you. Before you tonight, starting on page 12 of your agenda packet, is consideration to adopt resolution number 2 as part of the process for the Carriage Hill subdivision special assessment paving district, to try to get that work done. Resolution number 2 does several things that tentatively approves the board's intention to make the improvement. Emphasis on tentative, so there's no commitments being made tonight that you can't change. The other thing is doing is tentatively designating the special assessment district, which is Carriage Hill Lane from end to end, essentially. And it sets a date for the first of 2 public hearings that need to occur during this process. So all that's part of this resolution tonight. And it directs the staff to take the cost estimate that we've received and make it available to the township clerk, make it available to the public for their perusal prior to the public hearing. I will note that the cost estimate that is in your packet is derived from an estimate that we received in June from the Road Commission. Since then, we've approached them several times, I don't know, probably 3 or 4, to get a more current cost estimate. We did not receive that until today. The estimate we received today is slightly higher than the one we received in June. And then what we have done, the township, is we took their estimate and added 10% to it, because it's all an estimate to begin with, and we're working on road commission estimates, and so that's what's in your packet tonight, is a June estimate received from the road commission plus 10% that we've added to it. There are, as mentioned earlier, 15 steps through this process. The schedule that we have outlined, and it's pretty aggressive, completes the process in early November. And that makes it unlikely, from the road commission's perspective, that they can get the work done yet this year. Asphalt plants close in the middle of November and certain things. And so while we will be trying to do what we can to move the process along and all that, I understand the needs of the desires of the citizens and the board. It is a lengthy process, as defined by state statute. The reason for that is because you're ultimately taxing your residents, and there are, whether, as long as it's less than 100%, there are people that may not agree with it, and if you don't follow the process very closely, dot your I's, cross your T's, you're exposing the whole process to be redone. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Carriage Hill Estates number 1 and number 2 subdivision paving special assessment district, resolution number 2, and set the date for the first of 2 public hearings to be held on September 22nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the establishment of a paving special assessment district.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Brown. Discussion?
Yeah, a couple things for discussion. So, we approved this. The first public hearing would be the 22nd of September. The second public hearing, then, we would try to do the 13th of October, right? That's our October meetings, I'm looking here. Well, then, what would happen on the 27th of October? That's the day before Thanksgiving. I don't know if traditionally, didn't we ever
October?
move that up to like the Tuesday before, or?
That's not, October's not.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking, yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
We do have,
Thanksgiving's in November.
Yes, sir.
if you would like, our internal schedule. I believe Ms. Smith might have that with her tonight. I don't want to put her on the spot if she doesn't, but we have that, and we can run through it if you'd like.
Can we, please?
Yeah, because it doesn't seem to me like if you want it to happen, but like you said, Mark, the asphalt plant will close down, basically close down the 14th of November.
Why is that?
Deer hunting, baby.
Oh my God, that's, Jesus.
Well, and it's,
That's
and weather
exactly-
changing.
I can go over
Weather
the schedule
changing.
real quick if you want.
Thank
to.
you.
Yes,
I'll
please.
step
Yes,
up.
please,
Please.
at the
Just kinda
podium.
go through the schedule. So tonight, we're doing step number 6, which is resolution number 2. We're then required to do a 10-day notice, both in the paper and a letter has to be sent, or a notice of the public hearing has to be sent to all the residents. So I have on the schedule that that will go out by Friday in order to keep this moving along. We'll provide that to Lisa, who will have to review it, and then hopefully it can get mailed by Friday. And Lisa's really good about getting those things reviewed right away, and we have it ready, actually, to go, because we knew we're on an accelerated schedule. Then the first public hearing would be held on the 22nd, and that night we would combine that with resolution number 3, which is the next resolution, in order to speed this up a little bit. Step number 10 are the bids. That is another time when we will have to ask for information from the road commission. This is their final cost estimate, and depending on getting that back right away, then on the 20th, we would have, and also in there is between the time we get the cost estimate from the road commission, the assessor has to have time to complete the final roll. So a final roll has to be done by the assessor, so you have two different things going on, but you can't do the second step with the assessor until you get the information from the road commission. Then that step number 11 is resolution number 4, which is that we've received the special assessment district roll from the assessor, and we would present that to the board. And then on the 22nd, we would do the notice of the second public hearing, and then that would have to be mailed to all the residents again and put in the paper, and you have to do that 10 days before your next meeting. So then on the second public hearing could be held on the November 10th. And that would be combined with the final resolution, which is resolution number 5 on that same night. So the soonest we can let the road commission know that they can begin construction is on November 11th. So I'm doubtful that that will happen this year because the asphalt plant normally closes on the 15th.
Their meetings, like that day, their meeting would be at 8:30 in the morning, the road commission,
We can let
on the
them know.
11th.
Right, but we'd have to notify them, and then they have to schedule that with
Yeah.
whoever their contractor, which is probably,
We've shared this schedule with the road commission and asked them the likelihood of them being able to do this work this year based on the schedule. And today's response, based on the schedule today, was no. So,
So what happens if we get through step, is it 10, which is 10 to 11, we receive the final bid from the county, but I'm assuming they must be thinking of potentially padding it for potential increases for next year's?
I would think.
yeah, we would add, we did that with McGurk subdivision, which we've already done on this bid. I added 10% to that because I was unable to get a cost estimate until today, and I wanted to get this in your packet for tonight, otherwise we would have been even one more meeting out.
Right.
So I added 10%. They did provide that to me today, and they are a little lower than that. So we're within the range. And then, so that goes back to them one more time as a final cost estimate. Depending how quickly we get that back from the road commission, then it would go to the assessor, and the assessor has to complete the final roll.
Right, but once we get through a lot of this process, if we run into a situation where it isn't gonna happen, and it sounds like it's likely not to, as far as the paving process, once we've completed through 14, 15, at that point, it'll begin in the spring as it's been spec'd and bid, correct?
correct.
Correct,
And
yep.
I think, and I'd have to make sure I'm thinking it correctly, but if we get so far through the process and then it is clear that they're not going to do the work this year, then we may hold we may hold on and get approval of the last couple steps into the spring of 2022, because then we'd have better cost estimates. They'd have their 2022 pricing from the asphalt companies, and that might help make sure that the numbers that are approved as part of the final roll are as accurate as possible, as opposed to going through it all right now, add 10% to whatever they give us next, and who knows how close that is to, and then you approve that roll at that amount, and then the actual costs come in the spring, and they do the work, and they're, you know, considerably lower or higher, you become boxed in. But I don't think any of that has to do with what I just said isn't on point as to whether or not we can get the work done this year.
No, understood. Yep. My question was more about if we get far enough in this process, are we putting ourselves behind the eight ball as far as pricing, et cetera?
And to avoid that, we might leave steps, whatever they are, 12 through 15 for next spring.
Right.
Unless the county will lock in a price.
Right.
Well, they can't lock the price in because they don't know, like Kim knows,
Yeah.
Central Asphalt, you know, that
They don't get their pricing for asphalt
right.
until the
I
spring.
mean, they might not get it, then how many times does it change too? They've got the pricing and then next thing you know, it's increased 10%.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we didn't get the information we needed from the road commission in time to put it on the last agenda, which is where it was planned to be.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right, any further questions? We have a motion to approve this resolution. Number 2, anything else?
It's a nice project.
Agreed? I certainly support it,
And
and
it's-
it's amazing,
neat.
90, 91, 94%, whatever it is,
Yeah.
all but
Yeah.
one property
Thanks for the work you
has
did. on
signed
that.
down.
That's-
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's needed.
All right, no further discussion, we have a roll call vote. Clerk Cody?
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
trustee Hauk,
Yes.
trustee Brown,
Absolutely, yes.
trustee Bills,
Yes.
treasurer Rice,
Yes,
supervisor Milky,
Yes.
clerk Cody, yes. Oh, yes.
thanks for the information, Kim.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We put you on the spot and you weren't prepared for it.
Good job, Kim, thank you.
She sounded prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just whipped open her folder and there it was.
All right, with that, that takes us to item 10B of our agenda, Policy Governance 4.5, Manager's Performance Review and Contract Discussion. So, what I thought we'd do, since we had, as a board, decided to consolidate our review process, is we'll kind of go through that manager's review with our manager. And I'll try to articulate and glean a little bit from our discussion that we had. But if you need to interject and add or correct something I say, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go through this with our manager and jump in as you feel necessary. And then that'll get us through the process of Mark hearing more formally this. I did share with our manager the final document that we all worked off of a meeting ago and then reviewed the last few days. Make sense? Okay. So with that.
Oh,
Not,
No, I'm just.
all right, so as I described to Mark kind of what we did. And I'm going to describe, just in case you're not familiar, I'm a math nerd, math major, right? And so when I got to each of these items, like 1.0, what I did is I took our mean, which is the average score, right? Took the average score, listed that. And then I listed the mode, which is the most common score. So for example, if there was 2 2s, a 5, and 4 4s given by the trustees, 4 would be the mode because it's the most common answer. And then the other number I gave is standard deviation, which really tells you how much wiggle room there was in our votes. In other words, were we consistently together, or is it a wide bell curve, right? How tight is that bell curve that we're looking at in our grading? And it's useful for me, so if you look at 1.2, we had a standard deviation of 0.35. That means we were all pretty close to each other. We all were in consensus independently as we came up with our average. Does that make sense? So those are the three data points that I chose to put in there. I don't know if our manager, since this is really mostly for him, I don't know if he can appreciate that, but it was useful for me to see it this way. And I didn't get any pushback from the trustees as I shared it, so that's how I published it. So with that, we'll kind of go through this. So regarding global ends, item 1.0 is Union Township exists to support a sustainable community through the most effective use of resources that achieve the highest quality of life. And so we gave you a 3.7, which is to the point of exceeding expectations. Anybody want to comment on that? Do you have any questions on that one?
No, I don't.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm giving ample opportunity for discussion if there needs to be. 1.1, residents engage in a vibrant community life. We had an average score of a 3.3. And for the public that's out there, the scoring was from a 1 to a 5. I'll look it up so I don't misspeak. 1 is unacceptable, 2 needs improvement, 3 meets expectations, 4 exceeds expectations, and 5 is excellent. Uh, 1.2, all residents can thrive and achieve more than their basic needs. We gave an average score of 3.1.
Yeah, I won't have any comments as you go through that.
Okay, just one.
I've reviewed it, I understand it,
Okay,
and I appreciate it and accept it.
okay, very good. Thank you. I'll move quicker then. 1.4, residents of all ages have facilities that enable an active, healthy lifestyle. We had a mean or an average of 3. And then 3.6, 1.5, residents enjoy the natural resources and green space of the township. We give an average score of 3.7. And number 1.6, commercial establishments, including new, innovative, and traditional, are drawn to Union Township through commerce-friendly economic development policies. A mean score, average score of 2.7. And I think I'm going to try to articulate the board's thoughts on this, that we struggled a little bit with the global ends. We realized that is how we are to rate your performance. But I think there's a certain amount of, it's not all up to you. You can succeed or fail based on our support of you, right? If we don't support you in our own global ends, it's hard for you to succeed. So there's some of it, is that an accurate way to put it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I think some of it was a reflection on this board as well, even though we're trying to put it in the perception of grading and giving you a performance. But I think we struggled more with that.
Right.
Anything else on that, on section 1 then?
No.
Okay. 2.0, policy title is Global Executive Constraints. That's what this section is. In fact, the rest of this is. Township management shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational circumstance which is either unlawful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted public administrative practice and professional ethics. We gave you a mean score of 4. And I found it interesting that the mode was it was exactly 4 and the mode was 4. So fairly strong in keeping us in good shape. 2.1, With respect to interactions with consumers or those applying to be consumers, township management shall not cause or allow conditions, procedures, or decisions that are unsafe, undignified, unclear, unprofessional, indirect, untimely, inaccurate, or unnecessarily intrusive. A 3.4. Just, I keep looking up just in case somebody wants to interject.
Yeah, I think on that one, I'm gonna bring up the part where we don't have a complaint department. We don't have a procedure or process for complaints to be handled, and I don't know if there's a time framework that, is set down that needs to be handled either, and I think there's a problem with that, so.
2.2, with respect to the treatment of paid and volunteer staff, township management may not cause or allow conditions which are unfair, undignified, disorganized, and unclear or violate collective bargaining agreements. Average score 4.1, so very strong. Compensation and benefits with respect to employment, compensation and benefits to employees, consultants, contract workers, volunteers, and collective bargaining units. The township manager shall not cause or allow jeopardy to fiscal integrity or public image. A score of 4. So fairly consistently strong scoring through the executive constraints. Financial planning, section 2.4, financial planning for any fiscal year or the remaining part of any fiscal year shall not deviate materially from board's ends priorities, risk fiscal jeopardy, or fail to be derived from a multi-year plan. Fairly high again, 4.3. 2.5, with respect to the actual ongoing financial condition and activities, the township management team shall not cause or allow the development of fiscal jeopardy or material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities established in ends policies. Very high score of 4.6. Asset protection. Township management shall not allow corporate assets to be unprotected, inadequately maintained, or unnecessarily risked. Give a 4.3. Apology. I'm thinking through the meeting, our comments, if there's stuff that we need to relay. That's my pausing. 2.7, the township management team may not enter into any grants and contract arrangements that fail to emphasize primarily the production of ends and secondarily the avoidance of unacceptable means. Score of 4.1. 2.8, in order to protect the board from sudden loss of township manager services, the township manager shall not operate without a written plan identifying no fewer than 2 other named executives familiar with board and township manager issues and processes, a 4.2. And I think I'll interject here, part of the discussion that we had as a board was maybe not being aware that that succession cross-training plan existed, at least the new members. And so what came from that is that we were going to want you to send that plan out to the board again so the new members can see that. Is that accurate?
That would be great. I'd love to have that.
The succession.
Yes. So it's like a page or two from what I remember, but
Right.
you think it's in there?
I'll send it out. It's Appendix F of the governance policy.
Oh, well, we got it.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't thinking it was in there. I remember reading it, but, wow, none of us caught that in the meeting, so.
I don't read
Fail.
the governance policy every day or
Thank you for that. 2.9, in order to maximize achievement of ends, the township manager shall not fail to explore strategic partnerships and intergovernmental cooperation and to optimize collaboration with other entities in the region where appropriate. A 3.6, and the one item I really remember from discussion on this was a comment that Trustee Houck had made, I think in a prior meeting, which is about looking at reaching out to our neighboring townships in addition to all the other outreach that you do. We good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think take from that we recognize that there's a lot of relationships that you work on with the county, the city, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just meant as a suggestion. 2.10, township manager shall not permit the board to be uninformed or supported in its work. A 4. And so as I look through this, we tended to score higher on the executive constraints or limitations. And I think that's a reflection of a few things. One being, we felt that was more in your court, whereas the global ends isn't just your court, right? And that there was a general discussion that while we have ideas of things we could suggest to improve, you meet or exceed our expectations for practically everything. Fair, board?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, with that, I'll stop for a minute, and we'll go through some of the comments a little bit, but I want to just ask if there's anything that others want to contribute to we're speaking as a board, ideally, but your take from our work process on this.
I think we're all
Okay.
in.
I just,
Well, and I do believe one thing that came from this, and this isn't to do with Mark, was that we wanted to reevaluate the system a little closer, I believe. And I think we all kind of talked about that there could be a better system.
better tool, right?
Better tool. Yeah, because it was, the global ends part, the beginning part was very hard to just evaluate Mark on. It was, until we all sat down together, somewhat confusing how to do it. You know, I'm glad we did it as a group. I like that process, and I believe this tool can be worked on, which makes it a lot better for our manager to have the answers he's looking for at the end of this process. So I think we all agreed upon that on the system too, just to kind of throw that out there. As we go through this, the next couple of years, we'll be working on this.
Yeah.
And I also think that, I don't think maybe anybody in this room knows exactly what the township manager does every week. We don't know. How the heck are we supposed to know? I've never been a township manager.
I know one thing, I think we feel he does a pretty good job at it.
Well, we
Yeah.
think the results are good, but I don't know what he does every week, so how can I say, hey, you should be doing this too? Add this on, why don't you add this
It's-
on too?
It's the outcomes we're looking for, though.
We're
Yeah.
looking
That's
for
the most
outcomes.
important part.
we're
Roger
looking
that,
at the
I'm
outcomes.
just saying, I don't know.
We have the monthly
The monthly
reports.
reports. Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, those are kind of broad. That's all.
But we have the opportunity to read it, and then if we have questions, we can dive, or ask Mark to elaborate a little bit more.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do appreciate that monthly report.
Yep.
And I realize it's not just monthly, because some of it has long-term forecasting, what was done short-term. I do have I collected all the comments, just, again, for the public, I know everybody knows this, but we collected all the comments from the board. I didn't try to re-articulate them. I didn't try to, in any ways, try to paraphrase them. I just took them down verbatim, so that our manager could read our individual comments. They're not attributed to anyone in particular, they're just our comments. And if anybody really feels like they need to lift something up from this, I'm happy to let them do that. But I think the comments that we gave our manager largely speak for themselves, but.
Yep. I do too.
All right, with that, we had, I think it's good to look at the totals. With an overall average score of 3.8. And if you remember from the beginning, I described 3 meets expectations, 4 exceeds expectations. And that's why I said originally, I think you meet or exceed our expectations overall. At least that's where the scoring landed. So, pat on the back, kudos, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I think it's also important to notice that the lowest of it was in the global ends, which we were kinda, is this really relating to him or us or that as well? Otherwise, the average score would be a lot higher.
Right,
I would agree.
right.
So.
Yeah. How did these questions come up? You know, how did, you know, we talked about that a little bit too.
Sorry. didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no, it's good. So I don't know, Mark, if you had a chance to look at this today, if you in general had comments back to the board or questions about any area, or, and not that I'm expecting something, but feel free to.
Thank you. And, yeah, I do have a couple comments. I really appreciate the time and thoughtfulness and effort that the board put into this exercise. I do appreciate the comments, what can be done better. There's always ways and things we can be doing better. What the board thinks that we're doing well, that's good to know as well. And I understand that the comments were kind of verbatim, and so it would not be surprising to see both sides of the mirror, if you will. You know, the same thing being said in what the manager does well is also repeated in what the manager could improve on, because we all have our different, takes on that, and that's, that to me is to be expected. I do appreciate that there was a comment about making sure the board's informed about these important things as soon as possible, and it was commented that this has improved dramatically, and I'm glad to see that, because I tried to be more conscious of that over the last year or so. So I'm glad to see that has had some effect. The collaboration with other units, I get it. You're probably right. I could not name all the other township
Well, they could reach out to you too.
supervisors.
Right.
One of the things that drives that, though, is you tend to end up in collaborative discussions with units that are more similar. And there are, there are several of the townships are just so much smaller than us and so less complex that it just doesn't make it, but I appreciate the sentiment. I think it is, and I've heard this for, a couple of years, and I picked it up. I watched the meeting the other night, and you all kind of touched on it right here. This business about the ends and the manager, and is it fair to judge the manager on things that they don't have full control over, and that's much more likely to occur in the ends area than in the limitations area. And that's reflected in the scores. I will say, though, that the way this system is set up, I think it's very fair to say that as goes the township, so goes the township manager. And so if the board generally thinks the township is doing well, we're all taking credit for it, and I'm taking credit for that. If things are not going well, that's my responsibility too. Because this system, this governance policy system, is set up that you all define your ends and define your policies via your ends, and then I'm supposed to execute those.
We're not the
And-
lions here, so.
Yeah, and so it is my responsibility to effectuate the ends. And it may not be, as easy as some of the working within the limitations, but I think it is my responsibility. So from my perspective, trying to separate manager performance from township performance writ large kind of misses the boat. I think they go more hand in hand than I believe the board may want them to go, and then you almost get apologetic about the low scores, and you don't need to be. You know, they're going to be lower. It's more difficult to effectuate those. A lot of times it takes collaboration with others, or not everything's in our control. You know, the roads, for example. If we own the roads, you know, we'd have a lot more ability to do things how we want to, when we want to, and, you know, that kind of thing. Also, I think that, you know, when you want to know what I do, I kind of do three things. I do it. You can look at the job description. That's one of the things I'm supposed to be doing, is whatever's outlined there. I am supposed to be achieving, or at a minimum, working towards attainment of the ends. And you can tie the ends closely to day-to-day operations by looking at your April monitoring report of the ends. Okay, that's where that April report really ties these ends that are kind of soft and all, you know, with what we do throughout the year. And when I say we, it's the organization. And then you do that within these limitations that the board has set up, which is the box that I'm supposed to operate in. And those monitoring reports come to you every month. And so, you know, I think there's, and in addition to the regular monthly report, I think there's a lot of information that can help you understand what I do. It was asked a couple of years ago what I did, and I think it was at the time Trustee Lannon, and I said, well, I kind of think of myself as a symphony conductor. I don't play any one instrument, may not even know how to play any of them. But if you listen to an orchestra without a conductor, it just sounds like a bunch of musical notes, and you probably want to get up and leave. And you know, my job is to make sure all of these pieces are working together. That's the primary job of the COO, or, you know, the chief operating officer. And then just to, I think, wrap up my comments. And then, yeah. So I then did an average of just the global ends and just of the executive constraints, just to see how the scoring is. And as it pertains to the global ends, the mean was 3.3, and you know that's above meets expectations. So I'm very happy with that, and I appreciate that input. When you look at the executive constraints, it's 4.05. And all that makes intuitive sense because it's easier and more, it's easier and more well-defined, I guess is the better answer, to execute and operate within the constraints because they're much more specific. And So it all made sense to me that the scoring's higher in the executive constraint limitation area than the global ends. And I really like the process too. Again, I think it's the first time I've had a review from a board as opposed to whether it's 5 or 7 individuals that are on the board, which again is intuitive to me because I work for the board. I don't work for 7 individuals. I work for this collective called the Union Township Board of Trustees. So thank you and appreciate the comments and the input.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think, just to piggyback on what you said, the executive constraints are, they're a lot easier to benchmark. You can look at the books and go, are we in fiscal trouble or not? I mean, it's very apparent to be able to judge that, where the global ends are intendedly meant to be something that's just out of reach. You know, you hopefully never quite get there, but you're always striving to get there. And if our global ends were tasks, then they would be done, they would no longer be a global end, right? So they're very different beasts.
Well put.
All right, well, with that, you know, this is that time of year, when not only do we do this performance review, but this is supposed to not just be a tool for our manager, but for us. We have a contract that expires with our manager on January 1st, if I remember correctly. And we've been in a position since our current manager was hired in 2014. Was that summer? Summer.
16.
Summer of
16.
16, my apologies.
June 8th, 2016.
Yeah, thank you. To renew that, because that's how that contract is constructed, as an annual contract. And so I hope everybody's had a chance to look through that contract. I know our manager has, and he shared it with us. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and say that my goal for me this evening is to keep this manager at this township because I think things are running well.
Yes, I agree.
Agreed.
And so with that, we need to have the discussion with the manager of compensation, contract, and what that should look like, if it's dramatically different than it is now, or the same, and so I'm opening up here. You know, at some point, I do want to ask our manager where he sits on this. But I'm happy for comments from this board and how you'd like to accomplish this process.
There's been a lot of discussions, I would assume. I know I've been involved in a lot of them. Connie brought up the fact that the county's given a 2.5% increase. With a 2.5% increase, what Mark currently makes, if we gave him a 2.5% increase, it would increase his salary to $106,850. Plus the $250 a month that he currently gets for a vehicle.
Which is
So-
$3,000 a year.
What's that?
3,000 a year.
3,000 a year, so you're at about 110,000 a year, if we went 2.5%.
Right, and we did that vehicle and the vacation. That was the last real compensation increase of any kind.
And
And the vacation one was interesting, because for me, I'd pick vacation too. And it doesn't cost the township anything. In fact, it allows for that succession plan to be tested. And so it was gracious, I think, and selfish at the same time for our manager to ask for that time off, because that would have been selfish from my perspective if it were me asking for it. But it also helped the township.
There's many things to consider, you know. So if you go a 2.5% increase, as such the county's doing, just say it puts him at 110 with his perks and everything, you know, not perks, but
Yeah.
benefits.
You know, it's a
Yeah.
perk.
Yeah.
So at 110,000, he would be making, according to our wage study from 2019, the city of Big Rapids, their city manager made $110,600. City of Ludington was $110,000. City of Mount Pleasant was $122, and the Delphi Township, down by Lansing, was $120. I'm not sure where Park Township is, but they're at $120.
How many residents are in each of those
Well,
jurisdictions?
and my deal is with this too, is when you take cities, they also have fire departments, police, these managers have to manage, you know, they have fire chiefs, police chiefs, but still, they have streets departments, they have fire departments, they have police departments, parks departments. I know we have a parks department, but it's not as big as some of these cities. But, I mean, I'm not saying Mark doesn't deserve a raise. He does. He deserves some kind of compensation. I know I've had a talk with one of the trustees today, or the last couple of days, that they said a one-time bonus. So, but on a one-time bonus, we'd have to come up with a number, and taxes would get taken out of that.
And the security of one-time bonus is not the same as a salary
Right,
increase,
right.
Well, what if you look at the range for the wage study, which was done in middle of 2019, so it's not that out of date, except for COVID, which makes a big deal. He's at the max right now
Right.
with his perks, with that car perk, that's $3,000, so you might as well say he's at the max. So it says for the people that are at the maximum to give them maybe a COLA adjustment, which in 2021 is 1.3%. 2022 has not been determined yet. We don't have third or fourth quarter inflation numbers yet, so we wouldn't be able to determine that. You know what I mean? So I just want to bring that up. That's what the study says. That's the study we commissioned. Not we, but the board did at the time, or whoever.
A few of us.
How many full-time employees do we have? 25?
About 25.
All right. We're not planning on adding any more full-time department heads. Were we planning on a HR person or an IT person?
I mean,
I know we had
ultimately,
those
that was part of the
discussions.
plan.
What's
That
that?
was part of the,
Right,
part of
I
the,
know,
yeah.
when our
Ultimately.
previous board, we had discussed that.
Ultimate, when's ultimate? When does ultimate
When,
happen?
when resources allow it, really. I mean, you can't do it without the resources to do it. But the longer-term plan is to add HR, IT, additional
But
staff.
we have less, we have 2,000 less people, right, or something like that now?
On the
We have
census.
Lower tax base, don't we? Is that not true?
Well, I would argue that, but,
Well, then argue it, I don't get it, I don't know.
I can say that when the census was done, none of the
Students
students
were
were
The
there.
students were gone.
And that's why you see-
That's where most of our people are.
Are we gonna argue that point with the census people?
You
I,
can't.
I was gonna say,
You really can't.
Well,
I
Yeah,
mean,
you
you can't.
can't, and
They
I'm
did
sure
that.
they
You can.
know that.
We did it in
No, they
2000
did it
we did it in
before.
2011.
Because if you did it
And
now,
the township
it would be
won.
completely different.
Oh, really?
I mean, I can tell you just from the registered voters that moved in within, every week, we get at least, 50 to 70 voters a week at this time. When all the college students come in, and then they all move out, and then they
And-
all move in. So, I mean, it makes a big difference.
And they're not much of a tax base because most of them are transient
Yeah.
and rent. And any taxes we really getting, we get it from revenue sharing, the count from the census. But as far as the 1 mil, that's all coming from property owners. And that's generally not the student population.
So how
Generally.
much is revenue sharing of our income?
It's about, going from memory, 60-ish%.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's huge.
So if we
Yeah.
lose, what was it, how many? 11%, 15? I don't know, what was there, 11% less?
Mount Pleasant was
City was
16%
bad,
less.
too.
What were we?
Well, I
11.
thought we were
8 or
11. I thought
11?
we were like 11. I
Yes.
thought that's what it said.
11%
City was
less
a
or
little higher.
60% of our income is quite a bit.
Well, the point of this was, yeah, the long-term plan, Mark has articulated, the previous board approved, which was, when we grow, this is how we need to grow, essentially, staff-wise.
Well,
And
the
when we
reason-
shrink.
Right, well, I mean, that's gotta be dealt with too, right?
Well, we're talking about compensating a manager that's at the maximum level of the range, and we're shrinking our revenues. That's the point I'm trying to make there.
Sure.
Yep.
The only one I'm trying to make.
And then my point was how we had talked, previous board member, when we were with our last board, I think it was in 2018, we were talking about adding on a community and economic development director, adding the IT person and everything, but whatever. That previous board member said we have to look at the long range too. You know, you hire an IT person on, you hire on a human resources person. I don't know what they pay those people, but I would assume that when you take both of those two together, if we do that in the next couple of years, you're looking at let's just say $150,000 more in payroll between those two people. I don't know, I mean, but when you figure the benefits and everything in, and are they needed? I mean, I
That's-
see where,
That's not our
I-
decision
right, I know,
to
I know.
make. and-
Right, I know.
Yeah, and if we have revenue cuts, then I would think the manager would take care of that,
Right,
right? I think the issue is managers are sitting here.
right. Well, I mean, we probably need them, but
So, let me ask you. I think you like working in this township. You got a.
I like it very much. And so I'm just going to try to bring the discussion back to what we're doing here tonight. I get the census and all that and what revenue may or may not do and who we may or may not recommend adding positions in the future. But what we're here doing right now, per governance policy 4.5, which says the Board of Trustees shall negotiate a contract annually, okay? So, got two key words there, shall and negotiate, which means
Back and forth.
a dialogue and negotiation. And then the contract says that the board will consider annually an increase in compensation. So that's what we're doing here.
right.
And the contract itself automatically renews every January 1 if neither party does nothing. Okay? It's an annual employment contract that automatically renews every year, absent some action. The, so I could explain where I'm coming from and all that kind of jazz, and that'll just get into a bunch of detail, and, you know, I'd probably want to make a copy of this thing for everybody if I wanted to do that, but back in 2019, when we had this study done, there was a range established for the township manager, a pay range, and I was paid at the time in an amount, and at that time, my salary was 97% of the maximum of that range, okay? And then over the course of a couple of years, because of, and there is a distinction between salary and benefits and perks and all that jazz, that they're distinct items. Over the next couple of years, there was no change in my salary, in the base salary. That's a fact. Yes, there were some other benefits given, but there was no change in base salary. And so over time, and then, so you have a range in 2019, minimum, midpoint, maximum. And like we've done with all the positions, that range goes up each year based on typically the cost of living. And so the range in 2019 is not the range that you would have today. And today, I'm closer to 94% of the maximum because my salary hasn't gone up in a couple of years. And so on the one hand, I might think, well, let's establish my relative position within today's range at 97%. And if we did that, my salary would end up at $109,950, which is an increase of 5.56%. Okay? And, I get the 2.5% and all that, but it wouldn't need to go up 5.5% if it had gone up the last couple of years. And I agreed to all the stuff in the past. We're just talking here.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, keep going. That's great.
And so, if we're negotiating and I hear one number of 2.5%, you might hear a number from me of 5.5%. Okay? And then keep in mind that the non-supervisory collective bargaining agreements on 1/1/21 went up 4.5%. Okay, and that's a combination of a step increase due to moving further into the range and the whole range going up due to inflation. So it's a combination of cost of living and call it longevity if you want. In 2022, that's set to go up 4.68%. And so, you might want to think about those numbers in terms of 2.5% increase effective for me on 1/1/22. Okay. So that's what I have to say about wages. There's base rate, base wage, and, so anyways, I think we got some places to work from. I'd argue it's 2.5%, 5.5%. And I think probably both parties could make, we can both talk for 3 days on why one number is better than the other. Then the other thing that I have thought about, in addition to wages, is there's a severance clause in my package, in my contract. And that says that for every year worked at termination without cause, I would get 1 month of pay plus benefits for each year that I've worked.
Maxing at 6.
And it maxes at 6 months. Okay, that's what the current contract says.
Right.
And I was considering that I might prefer 1.5 months of pay for every year worked with a maximum of 12 months. And the whole thing with severance is it only comes into play when there's a termination without cause. You all have the right to wake up this morning and decide you want somebody else. That's fair, that's reasonable, I accept that. no problem. If that were to occur, under the current contract, I would get, I want to say it's 5 months of pay, because I've been here 5 years, so I'd get 5 months of pay. And that 5 months' pay is supposed to be what I'm going to use to live on while I'm looking for other work. And,
Isn't it
and
up to
it,
6
and if there's a
months?
termination without cause, then I kind of feel like I'm due something. I already get something, but maybe I think it should be a little bit more, because of where you are in your career and all that kind of jazz. At 1.5%, it would take 8 years of me working to reach that 12-month max, which I fully intend to do. I love working here. I'm not planning on changing. I'm
I
not
had
looking
my
to
hand up
change.
first.
Oh, did you?
I
But
did, a long time ago.
I'll turn it over in a minute.
Yes,
You all, supervisor turned to me.
yes, sir, we're letting you finish.
And so, I think the two things I'm looking for is a little change in the severance area and some increase in base salary. And now thank you.
Yeah. So you had your hand up first.
I had my hand up sometime last year, but I was letting him finish.
Thank you.
Thank you, manager. I had a question for you, sir. You talk about the rest of the unionized employees' collective bargaining agreements, but where is the average percentage of the range that they're in? So are they in the 50th percent of the range, 60th percent on average?
We have, we have a seasoned, experienced workforce. They've been here a long time in the main. So we have a few employees that are at the top of the range, and there's language in the contract that says how to deal with that. I would guess that there might be 3 bargaining unit employees that are at the top of the range, maybe 1 non-bargaining unit employee that's at the top of the range. We have many that are above midpoint, and each year they increase. We have a 10-step range.
Because I think when we had the study done, if I remember right, there were some that were below the range. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
Everybody has been brought into the range at a step that was consistent with their essentially years of service at the time we implemented the study.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
and just for point of reference too, historically, what I remember from the board at that point was, that was a goal, was to get some of those underpaid brought into that range, as it's being termed.
Yeah.
And
I
we've
like
done
it.
that.
I got a question before it goes away.
If they're not at
It's real
97%.
Okay, so the way I'm reading this severance package, I mean, maybe I've read it wrong this whole time, but I honestly thought it was a year. Because it says he shall be entitled to severance equal to 6 months of his, hold on a minute. Then current rate of pay and benefits after 3 years of employment. Should the township choose not to enter the annual contract, he'll be entitled to a severance payment of 1 month's pay of benefits after that. So I thought it actually went up to a year because it was 6 months if he was just fired after 3 years or just fired for no reason. And then, up to 6 months after that. I mean, that's how I read it, so I honestly thought that he would get a year, the way I read it.
But it does.
But I mean,
maybe I'm
that might be, I'm
confused.
just
Doesn't
reading
say
it wrong.
It says at a maximum of 6 months though, right?
Extra
Right.
out off of the 6 is what I thought, like, so 6 months.
No.
And the 6
You're
is how I
reading it
read
wrong.
it, so that's how I really, I thought it was a
At-
year.
At the time of the execution of the contract, so you're a brand-new employee, and the idea is if all of a sudden you decide that it's the wrong hire in the first 3 years of my employment, the severance was 6 months.
Right.
Okay? No matter how many years I worked, within the first 3 years, if I was let go without cause, I was gonna get 6 months of pay. And then there's another sentence that goes, okay, after 3 years, so things are kind of stable, and so after 3 years, the formula changed, and it became, 1 month of pay and benefits for each year of employment.
Yeah, that's the way I am.
Okay, I totally
Yeah.
understood it completely different.
So right now, we're in that piece where it's after 3 years.
So I really thought it was a year total.
And it's still a maximum of 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I just had one more question. The other question is, on that severance clause, if we were to fire you with no cause, don't you sue us anyway?
Michigan, you can fire somebody without cause.
And then you can get sued.
Yeah,
No,
you
yeah,
sue
you-
for just about anything.
Anything, but
Right.
you really don't have to have a reason to fire anybody.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Michigan's an at-will
Try it.
employer.
I know it is.
The Michigan state law.
You
that-
can't just do, I've been an
Yeah.
employer for 25 years. I know what happens when you fire somebody without cause.
You can, for a position like mine, you cannot discharge me for reasons that are illegal.
Right.
If I was too tall,
Yeah.
Yeah.
too short,
Too
the wrong,
bald. No, I'm just
whatever.
kidding.
You know, there are certain specific things that you cannot
Discriminate.
discharge somebody over. So if you did that, you're likely to get sued. You know, you do have the right to, as long as it's not one of those things, because it's in here in the contract. I'm an at-will employee. You can discharge me because you didn't like what the sky looked like this morning. If you can get 4 votes, you can discharge me without cause. And yes, for $25, I could do a filing and sue you, you know, try to sue you, cause all kind of angst, and, you know, I can't see myself doing that because I don't understand how it really helps me. It's not gonna help me get rehired, and it's not gonna help me as I'm looking for new work that I just sued my prior employer. So unless it's for one of those illegal reasons, I'm probably not gonna do it, but, you know, I can't give you a hand on the Bible, swear I'll never do it type of thing, but the likelihood is de minimis. So,
Okay.
Trustee Howard?
Yeah, I have okay. Now, on your severance, you said that one thing that you'd like to see is increased to 1.5. Like, for every year you've worked, you'd like to see a year and a half, basically.
A month and a half.
A month and a half, I'm sorry. a
of
month-
pay.
Right,
Well, a year and a
right.
half total.
So-
Maximum of a year.
So if I worked here 8 years, in theory, the math would be I'd get a year's pay and benefits.
And so that separation, if we did that, that would be $156,000 plus benefits, social security, all of that. So.
Yeah, right now you're
That's-
maxed at 6
Right,
months.
so you'd be at close to $200,000, just say if we were to let you go tomorrow and if we agreed to all this, it'd be close to $200,000 for a year.
And that's in the case of without cause.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yeah.
I don't know where you're getting $200,000.
If you did it today.
Well, if you did,
Benefits.
go ahead.
If you did it
I'll tell you
in the
this.
8th year, if we did change the severance, and we did, and I was terminated without cause in the 8th year, the contract would say you owe me a year's salary at whatever that then rate is,
Right, I'm figuring you're correct.
And- and benefits, so that would mean you'd continue to carry me on your health care. And it says benefits, so
Oh, okay, benefits, so
You-
the.
So healthcare, dental, vision,
The MERS and all that.
yeah, because all that's, yeah, right,
Okay.
right. Whether or not, I'd be accruing 5 weeks of vacation in that year that I was out and being paid severance, I don't know, that's maybe some refinement to the language, but, yeah, I mean, it's a year's pay and benefits.
So maybe
At
the
8
question-
years.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Maybe the question to the board, to a certain degree, is we're talking about the without cause line, right? Which
Right.
means we've decided we don't want Mark anymore for whatever reason. That means we either want a different manager or we're gonna go without a manager. We're moving on. And what is the likelihood of that? Because if I put myself in our manager's shoes, I look at this as a position of job security. Because we have board turnover, right? The next board could come in and go, you know what, we want to run it like the old days, and the supervisor should do everything, and it gives Mark that assurity that if policy governance goes away and new board comes in and shakes everything up, he's not out in the cold. So, I mean, if it were me, I'd be looking at it the same way. I might not have the same numbers or anything, but I'd have that reason to think that way.
Sure.
You basically terminated me for without cause. I didn't do anything wrong, I'm still doing my job, and you said goodbye. And if we feel like we might come to that in a year or two, we might not want to agree to this. But if we feel we've got a good manager here, and we don't see a reason that we would just suddenly terminate this without cause, then isn't it just insurance for Mark? For an unlikely event? I'm
I
asking.
agree. I feel it's extremely unlikely that this board or a board in the future would do such a thing. On just cause, just to relieve the manager in that way.
I already
I
thought it
just-
was a
I
year to
can't
begin
believe that
with,
would-
so, I mean,
You
I
what?
believe that's
I
very
already
low
thought it was a
percent.
year to begin with, so.
She's on board.
I mean, that's how I read it,
But
and
the
so I thought it was a
percentage
year.
is what we have to look at, and you called it out. What is it?
Yeah.
It's so minute.
And from my perspective,
Maxed out.
if this was a manager that I didn't have faith in, I might be thinking about, well, we need to be looking at parting ways a year or two down the road. I don't feel that way. I think we're lucky to have Mark here. Is Mark perfect? No, nobody is. But I feel pretty blessed that, because I know administrators for a lot of municipalities, and I've seen other ones come through, and I think we're fortunate.
Maxed out.
And I think he's pretty fortunate. He's got a great board to work with.
Yeah, I love working here. I've said it every year I've worked here.
Says
And
middle management.
one of the main reasons I came here was because of policy governance. So it's important to me. And the 8th year, where it would be a year, is July of '24. That's when I will have been here 8 years. And to your very point, there's an election in November of '24. And that's a wild card.
Right. Could be retirement time before then, too.
And so I'm protecting, part of the reason I bring this up is to protect myself against the unknown of a new board.
Sure.
New board
Right.
comes in,
Yeah.
it's perfectly legitimate.
Understand.
We just want to make change. New board, make change,
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And feel free not to answer this, but how long do you, just to throw it out there, everything is great, how long do you plan on staying the Union Township manager?
30 years.
It's easy to figure out.
I have no plans to leave. I have no plans to, I'm not actively looking for any work.
Thank you.
I'm not in a position to retire anytime soon because life gets in the way.
In a box.
But it's some answer, it's, I can't
Yeah, no,
give you any guarantee.
that's a great answer because, and the reason why I brought this up, the board should all look at that answer and say, we're investing in this man. We're investing, this is our future. This is what we're investing in. Look at your scores that you gave him. This is who we're gonna invest in right here. And he just told you, he's not leaving, he's not looking, he's happy. Come on. You
If
know.
the board got rid of policy governance, I'd start looking for work. Because then this would just be like any other place.
Good to know. Thank you, Mark.
Incidentally, I did ask Mark, when the county administration job came up, if he was looking at that. The answer was no. And then I asked him, I hope I can share this, asked him if he was looking at the city manager job. And his response was, I thought about it, no, not going there.
Yeah, I didn't apply for either one of those jobs and they're right in the backyard.
Clerk Cody.
What does it say for a retirement plan in that? Anything?
Yeah,
That's what I would be
MERS,
asking for.
well, he's got a pretty,
Well, they all have
there's
retirement.
two different ones.
Oh, you get all the.
They all have a
benefits and
retirement.
Mark, just so I can hear it
I'd
from
be
you,
going
why
for
didn't you
better
apply
than
for
that.
those?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Why didn't you apply for those?
It's less money, isn't it?
No,
No, I just want to hear from Mark. Why didn't you apply for them? I mean,
It's not as exciting.
I did not apply for the county administrator's job because I don't think I would be as successful as a county administrator compared to a township or township manager or city manager.
yeah.
Primarily because you have to be much more of a facilitator because of all the elected, the courts, the clerk, the treasurer, the sheriff. You have all these elected officers
Yeah.
that the county administrator doesn't have as much concrete authority. It's
Gotcha.
much more of a facilitation to get what you want. And I don't know that all the time facilitation is my strength. I'm not sure I have the patience for it. So
I appreciate the honest answer. Thank you.
that was for the county job. For the city job, it had nothing to do with the organization. I just didn't think it'd be a fit. And maybe the best answer is, the most honest answer is, I've been there. You mentioned the police department and that kind of thing, and I've worked for organizations bigger than the city, not in the manager role. I've worked in cities similar to the size of the city of Mount Pleasant in the manager's role. And maybe the police department is one of the biggest things. If they had a jail, I wouldn't even think about it. A lot of cities do have a holding cell thing, and it's just a whole nother order of magnitude of stress that I've done, lived through, lived with, and I'm not sure I'm interested in it.
Well, I'm definitely glad you made the decision that you did not to apply. Thank you.
Yeah. Clerk Cody.
I was gonna say the correct answer to that is, I love Union Township. It's amazing. Why would I want to change that?
I think he did say
but-
that in the last. I think he did say that.
I did say that, but if that's
And then
all
just
I
leave it at
said, nobody believed me.
But if, I believe you.
That's
That's all
funny.
that matters. Okay, so, honestly, instead of voting on this today, I would like it written up and brought back on what we decide or agree upon, if that would be okay.
That's okay with me.
I don't care, we haven't talked about it yet.
I know, but I was just saying ahead of time.
Aren't we gonna talk about that tonight?
Yeah.
Isn't that
We
what?
can.
Yeah,
That's what-
but
Yeah.
before we would like vote and agree on it, bring it back, and then we'll vote on it on the next one. That way it's
All
written
right.
the proper way.
Maybe it'll help move
If
us
that's
forward
okay.
on one thing. As far as the severance goes, I kind of articulated the likelihood of that happening, at least from my perspective. I don't have a problem with that.
I'd like to make an amendment to it.
Is that-
I'm okay with the 1.5 months up to 8 years.
You want to give them
No.
8 years of severance pay?
No,
No,
No, up to
Eight.
the 8 years of time.
isn't that what you asked?
You said up to 12, oh, up to 12 months, it is 8
12
years.
months.
Oh, okay, that is 8 years then.
Of a total of
Oh, I
12
thought- I
months,
was
yeah.
thinking it was-
Referencing at 8 years.
He'll get
Okay.
the
At
one-
8
he'll-
years, yeah,
he'll be
up
out
to
of
12
it.
months.
Oh, okay.
It won't grow anymore.
Okay, so
Yeah.
12 months, yeah, I'm cool with it.
Max
Did
out
you-
at 12
It
months,
maxes out.
with a maximum of 12
I'm
months.
cool with
Really
that.
wasn't,
I don't want to make an amendment, I retract that. I was paying attention the whole time.
It's my guess that, and I can step out if you all want to talk about this, but if you make me an offer, my guess is we'll be out of this room in about 10 minutes. We
James?
don't need to spend a ton of time on this.
But as far as that part, I'd
No,
like that rewritten.
And if
We
you
can
wanna
do
talk
that.
You
about
know what I mean?
that
That's a
with me out,
contract thing, that should be
I'll-
rewritten
The
and brought
se-
back.
Well, yeah, the severance I'm good with. I don't know, does anybody else have any issues with it?
anytime it comes
I'm
to,
fine
to
with it.
language,
I just,
I like to be very cautious. To me, I don't see any downside
I mean, look
to
how I
what's-
was reading that though.
been proposed. I really wasn't thinking along those lines, and that's not Mark's fault. I appreciate Mark bringing that up. But anytime we talk about language, I just really want to make sure that we've, as a board, have thought about that.
What do you mean?
I can't
I-
think of any reason not to,
We're
but
just
that's what scares
changing
me.
a couple numbers,
Because it's
we're not
only,
changing
we've
the
only
language.
had, a very small time for discussion on that. So when it comes to language,
Could you write that part up and bring it back?
Yeah,
I mean-
I think we're trying to come to a
Number.
gentleman's agreement at
Yeah,
this
just
point.
right there.
right, to
I'm
move
very
forward.
interested in pursuing.
Gentlemen and ladies here. Hey,
Sorry,
hello,
yeah,
anyone?
thank you.
Jeez, Louise.
I'm
So-
definitely interested.
That's why my
in
white
that
male privilege,
being
my
part of
apologies.
Yeah,
The
so,
compensation. I mean,
I mean,
Mark
that would be a
absolutely
separate
deserves-
vote anyway, so I mean, just
Yep.
bring the contract back
Okay.
with the amendment that,
So
So-
moving forward, it sounds like
Yeah.
we're in agreement to Mark's desire on the
Right.
without cause severance.
Yes.
correct.
I would like to see
Yeah.
see that language to
That's
where
fine.
I could just think about it for a little bit. Again, I don't see any issue, but it's
is that
just the
okay, Mark,
thought.
if you bring it back?
No
Susan?
problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Trustee Howe.
I'll make a motion
Oh, we're
for a
gonna,
proposal of a one-time bonus of $3,000 plus Mark's request for additions to the termination contract. What's that? Well, we gotta add it in the motion, right?
oh, he was gonna bring that back and we're gonna vote on the renewal of the contract. Contract is separate than a raise, right?
No,
I would second that, although I would just like to see the writing, the language of the contract in writing. Is
I'd
that-
like to.
Are we getting ahead of
Maybe I should-
ourselves?
No, it needs to be separate.
The motion was made, and so unless he wants to retract.
This is discussion, right? If you
Well-
can possibly make it separate.
We do have a motion.
and he
And we have a
seconded it.
second.
Well,
He
I'm
seconded,
seconding it
so
based
we're just
on,
talking.
I'm not getting ahead of myself, that we're not putting the cart before the horse.
Okay,
Well,
let's
that's,
go.
that's why I
let's
was
just
gonna vote no on that. so-
Yeah.
Let's-
Okay.
I was gonna vote no.
Okay, that's-
I
that was
retract
my
my
question.
motion, and I will make a different motion. I propose that we give Mark a one-time bonus of $3,000 effective January 1st, 2022.
I would support.
Can we do the discussion part?
Yep.
Thank you Supervisor Milky. I have a question. I like this statement. I think that the bonus is good, and I also would include a cost of living raise of 1.3% based on the 2021 cost of living increase that was given to Social Security.
Which that would be like a
That's where I'm at.
$1,300
Something like that,
to the base.
maybe around 15.
We're in discussion. What's the 3% represent? Or what's the $3,000 represent? Is this
Basically a
his pay? Is that what we're saying? This is what we're giving him?
Give him a
Three-
$3,000 bonus, a one-time bonus,
Okay.
where it doesn't go on his salary.
According to the, if I may, according to the wage study report, they say that people at the top of the range, you should give them other incentives aside from base pay because they're at the top of your wage scale. Even though we have just acknowledged that the wage scale is probably a little out of date, especially with the increases due to COVID.
I don't support that, but
Yeah,
I don't support that.
sometimes I'm okay with the one-time bonus, but it's one time and we're not making a commitment to our manager in this case.
Well, I would,
It's something you can do annually.
You're correct.
If it gets voted down, it gets voted down. Somebody else make a
So
motion.
I'm $3,000, what, it's gonna take a third of it away for taxes for a $3,000 bonus, like right off the top, so it's like,
You're gonna
You get
take
two.
about $2,400, something like that.
But it's one time, it's not any kind of,
I'd like to make a motion then.
Well, we have a
can't-
motion.
We
We have a
can't
motion.
until we have,
Fine,
So we have to vote on the motion.
We have
that's on
to-
the
Yes, sir.
floor and seconded.
roger that.
Okay. So call the question.
okay, all in favor, the motion, just so I'm clear.
well, you gotta do it in roll call because it's
Yeah.
a raise or an increase of
Yep.
pay.
Thank you, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't think of that until, it just popped.
Would you just, for me, restate the motion again?
I propose that we give Mark a one-time bonus of $3,000 effective January 1st, 2020. 2022, I'm sorry.
and there's more discussion to come on
Somebody else can make
some
another motion.
language
Right.
that will come to us potentially. So this is
This is just separate motion and bonus.
This
It's
is
a
right.
separate motion, just to get things flowing here. I mean, we can be here
All
all
right,
night if we
we've asked to call the
start.
question, so,
Hold on, second.
I
Okay,
mean, I'm
right.
not opposed to bonus, just for the record,
No.
but I'm
no,
opposed
not at
to
all.
solely a
Yeah.
bonus like this.
Yep.
Trustee Thering,
yes.
Trustee Brown,
No.
Trustee Bills,
No,
Trustee Hauk,
Yes,
Treasurer Rice,
no,
Clerk Cody, no. Supervisor Milky,
No.
so. Two
I'd like to
yes,
move-
5
Can I
no.
make a
right,
motion?
so we just make another motion.
go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion for a 3% raise and what Mark offered for the 1.5 months for every, 1.5 months for every year, up to 12 months, max, with a 3%. Because we were in the middle, 2.5, 5.5, 3%. If we come right down the middle on that, give him the one, and give him the severance package. That's my motion.
It's the same thing I said,
Separate.
basically.
Hmm?
It's basically the same thing that, whatever.
Second it.
No,
Can't do the
If you can
severance in the
do-
same language as your raise. That's what she said before.
That's
why
why
Well-
I took that out.
Couldn't do
What
that.
now?
they
Can't do
want to
severance
do,
if you can do it separately, that would be great because it's a contract versus
A wage.
a raise.
This is a
Okay, so
motion
you
for-
want my motion on the raise, or do you
Yeah.
want my motion on
The
the?
contract, I would
We've
like
already
Mark to
discussed-
bring us back to
Yep.
tomorrow, or next meeting with the verbiage of it, so we can,
Okay.
you know,
And I think
Do it
even
properly.
principal agreed to that.
That's
Yeah.
fine for the, okay,
Yeah,
So
so,
$127.
Just the wage
it's
thing.
just the
Go ahead,
wage.
do the wage
Whatever.
thing.
yeah. At 3%.
Yeah, I'll
For the
second
raise.
it.
State it again for me, sorry.
I make a motion for 3% raise, and how I came to that, because I split it in two, 2.5, 5.5, came to 3% raise, per year pay
effective,
increase.
effective,
So
2.5,
effective-
Motion by
or
Brown,
2022.
motion by Brown,
Where's the
yeah,
5.5?
effective, right?
Yep, January.
Support
Oh,
by
Mark wants
Howe.
5.5.
No, we were talking.
January
Discussion?
1st, 2022.
Let's discussion on this?
I'm not gonna vote for it, it's too high. He's too,
Discussion, how much does that make?
Well, that equates to
It's the
about
same
Wait, hold
right
on.
there.
What's
Right
that?
there. It's right with you.
It's about 3,000. just-
3,000,
Just a little over, yeah.
3,127, yeah, that's what it is currently on,
right,
104,250.
9% premiers, plus the, you know, the other, whatever.
Everything he already has.
Yeah,
That's- he already
all
has
based
that.
on base wages.
So
Yeah.
his base wage is what, 100?
104,
So-
104,250.
If I may, being that this is supposed to be a negotiation, let me ask our manager, we've made, we may be on the verge of making two decisions. We've made one that we agree tentatively, based on language, to the without cause severance changes, right? And I think there's consensus there. The other is we have a motion on the floor for 3% increase in salary. And before we vote on that, do you want to hear what the manager has to think about this? Because it is a negotiation, right? There's two
Yes.
sides to this.
I would love to hear if he has anything to say about that.
And I want to remind that at this point, the board has got two items that we're looking at.
In the middle of a motion.
We haven't
probably
voted on the
should
warrant.
get somebody in.
I think it's relevant to
Right.
whether or not you want to support it, because it is a negotiation. If Mark says great or no, that may affect how you vote. That's why I wanted to ask.
That's
Absolutely.
definitely true.
Right. And so, I would have been disappointed if the first motion passed because it did not involve any negotiation. You guys make a motion, you vote, it's the way it is. I would have been a little disappointed in that. No matter probably what the numbers were.
Yeah.
The current motion, I believe, is 3%.
Yeah,
It has a second.
yes,
Yeah.
You haven't voted.
I didn't-
Correct.
correct.
yeah.
That's why I wanted
No.
to,
I have no problem with that, that's great, thank you. If you vote for that, I appreciate it,
Well,
and
Second.
heartfelt thank you. That's how easy it could be.
Okay.
And I get the math, $127, but the way we get there is different.
It's
Right,
not.
right, that's-
right.
Yep.
And just for clarity, from my perspective, if I support this, it's under the understanding that we've agreed in principle with the manager also on the severance issue. We just want to see language before we sign off
That's
on that.
Yes.
Well, we'll have an official
We can,
vote. I guess,
we
I
can,
think a 3% raise is pretty good. I don't know how inclined I am to agree to anything more. Although if we're talking negotiation, that's just kind of how I feel. I think 3% is good.
So you don't want to do the severance?
I don't know. Again, I want to see it for one. In all fairness, we had an agreement. I need to read it and think about it, but I don't know how inclined I would be to include that.
The severance, maybe?
I mean,
Right.
Okay.
for Cody?
that's completely, like, that's a renewal of his contract. That's totally different than what we're talking, like, you know, a wage increase. That's different than a renewal of a contract. That's just changing some verbiage in the contract. So, you know, it has to be done two separate ways. But for future reference, when we make a motion, don't bring anybody else in. Let's negotiate first and then make our motion before, you know, kind of get an idea first before and ask. Just, for future.
Well, that's why
You
I
know what I'm
tried
saying?
to stop and interject and allow Mark to participate in the discussion because I thought it was relevant. All right,
I'm just not used to this type of negotiation. It's a little bit different than when I'm
It
when
should
I'm
have
used to.
been
I'm
different.
used to one side of the
Yeah.
table and the other side of the table, and you break and you have
Right.
discussions, and then you come back and you make a
It takes a year to get a
It,
contract.
it does, but I don't think, and Mark, I appreciate you being here. To be honest with you and your honesty, it's very helpful. But I think the way things are operating, I think next year we've learned something that it might go a little bit smoother, but I still think having the board being able to come and say, here, what do you think? And you can look it over and step out by the Coke machine, have a Diet Coke, and come back in and say, well, here, how about this? To me, in my mind, that's how it works. So this type of discussion is a little bit new. It's good. It's-
Keep in mind, it is an open meeting, so he can just, go watch it.
Well,
But,
well, I'm not trying to hide anything
okay,
from
yeah,
him.
no,
I'm just,
yeah.
all right.
maybe he
so
wants to go out and think about what's been proposed to him. I don't know.
He already said
He's
he
he's
was.
Already
indicated, not
Yeah.
yeah, I think you
Yeah, I mean,
would
we're
stop
not
us.
building a rocket here.
So, we have a motion.
I want to
Any,
ask.
yes,
I got
trustee
some
Bills?
discussion here.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Supervisor Milky. That's gonna, at 3% will bring him exactly up to the maximum of the mid-2019 wage study, which is now 2 years old. Are we gonna get a new wage study for next year, or how are we calculating the wage increases? Are we doing COLA? What are we doing to
It
increase
should-
this range?
COLA should be added to it, like for each year. So
Right.
like, it should go up.
COLA
per-
plus a raise?
No, just that's how much the wage study should change, is
Is
with
that what,
COLA.
is that the standard? Is that seriously what?
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Does
I
everybody
mean,
agree
That
with
doesn't mean
that?
you have to go by the
That,
standard.
you don't
can
have to,
go
that's
above the
just what,
standard
you
if
know, the
wanted
study
to.
would
You
go
could
up as
Reasonable sum.
per the COLA.
Roger
All
that.
right, so.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
To give you a point of reference, if the range would have gone up by the CPI, the last
2 years.
2 years, the range for this position at the minimum would be 94,459, and the maximum would be 113,351.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Motion on the floor is a 3%.
Raise.
Roll call then.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes,
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Smith.
I was gonna, Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
Thank you. Motion
Juan
passes.
Smith.
And the motion was a 3% raise effective January 1st,
2020.
2020. Yes, thank you. So we do have a contract in front of us, and I felt, we've just discussed 2 important points. We've agreed in principle to the severance that we want to see final language on. I don't anticipate that being an issue in general. It's pretty clear, right? And then the other being compensation. But I have a couple issues in the contract that we've not talked about. You okay going after those?
Sure. Anything you like.
One is, if you look at the contract that Mark shared with us, it's time to maybe redo it. There's like added notes because of changes to it each year about compensation. Maybe it's nice to have a clean document again, one that we actually have the original raw editable file that we can maintain. And I was kind of, this is a little weird, just because I love Union Township so much. Right at the beginning, it says Mark Stuhl Dryer of I would just
Right.
say Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Updated?
Yeah, you're just not there anymore, you're here. What's
Neither
important?
my legal address nor is the $99,000 what I'm getting paid right now.
Right, and now it's important to note the beginning of the original agreement, because that bears into that severance calculation, right? But when I got to term, this is the first page. So this is term item 2, it's a 90-day expiration of the current term for renewal. I wouldn't mind, if there's no objection from our manager or the board, looking at making that 120 days. That just gives us
I like it.
a little more wiggle room. We've run into, was it last year or the year before, we ran into a situation that if we'd chosen not to renew it, we were out of time, and we were gonna be in violation of that. And this gives plenty of time for both the manager and the township board to kind of get things
Oh, 90
Come in
days,
home.
190, hold on.
settled.
It's fine with me.
Objection to that?
I like it.
No
You
objection.
can't recruit somebody in 3 months anyway.
Right.
Do you see where I'm referring, Mark? You thinking? Because we all have to agree to this.
It's on the front page.
I know, but it's related to something on the 5th page, so I'm
Oh.
reading
Yeah,
the 5th page too.
Yeah, I was gonna go to that.
I have no problem with the 120 on, under term, item 2.
Yeah, and I think I know what you're referring to. I wasn't gonna suggest
There's
changing that
also
one.
the termination
Right.
clause with a bunch of subsections starting on page 5.
Yep.
And
I remember reading that.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
says
seeing it
he
now.
could do 30 days
30
written
days
notice
written notice.
anyway, so.
Number 2.
Right.
so there's a just distinction between how the contract automatically renews and if it doesn't automatically renew. And that's what's being dealt with what you just talked about.
Correct.
There's another section in the contract that talks about terminating the contract outside of the annual renewal process. And that currently says 30, that I'd have to give you 30 days notice, which is not much notice.
It's really no notice. You can't even get a ad in the paper by that,
No,
whatever township online paper it is, I don't know.
Does it say they still-
a couple of our directors would have to
That's
step
not your
up.
call kind of
Online.
thing.
They have like Township Weekly or something, MTA probably.
Yeah, and I had read that too, Mark, but I wasn't sure how to play in that. I just knew we.
I don't think they need to be connected. I just saw 5. I wanted to read it.
I knew that 90 days is really a pretty short timeline to make sure that we're able to complete this process when we choose to complete it. And I didn't think it jeopardized anything.
I'm
The other,
good with 120 days.
the other, are we good with that, or you prefer not to
Yep.
change? Okay.
I'm good with that.
I had another note in here. Question about the accidental death and dismemberment policy, life term, and the, I'm sorry, question about the term life insurance. Who's the beneficiary of that $40,000 policy? It doesn't say here.
Where we,
I don't think you have to
Page
say
three.
You don't
that, do
have to,
you?
he does, he
No.
doesn't
You
have
have to say
My
it.
company has life insurance on me, so if I die, then the company can get by and figure out how to replace me, right? And that money is used to do that. And so, but I have personal life insurance, but that's for my family. And so, when I read this, I'm like, is this for Mark?
Yeah, that's for
Or is
Mark.
this for the township?
Obviously,
I think
that's the
that's,
first
I
one.
That's
think
for
that's
Mark.
Mark.
Mark, is that for you or
It's
for the?
me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's,
Yeah, so,
Are you still in a position where that 40,000 term life is, we're both at an age where term is a little expensive. And I'm just asking if that's important or not.
Call the general.
Yeah, it's important because it's $40,000 that can go to my 3 kids.
Yeah, and funeral expenses and that kind of stuff. right? Okay,
Whatever they want to do with it.
sure,
you know.
okay. It's just not, it's.
Careful.
I was gonna say, I don't wanna touch that one.
I didn't see it as a large life insurance,
Like Wayland.
and that's why I thought, well, it must not be for the township.
Well,
because
it's not, but I think it's the
Snowmobiling.
maximum that an employer can
Kind of weird that
provide
it's in there.
Thank you,
without
without
it becoming
taxes.
a compensation taxable benefit type
Okay.
of thing.
Okay, in which case I don't have issue with
Yeah,
it.
right. And all the employees have it.
Well, then you're-
That's all the thing, yeah.
Yeah, I just was questioning, because it didn't say beneficiary, and I didn't know.
There's a 4-month file.
And that was really what I had, other than maybe wanting to clean this up, and if we can get this retyped up, and, because we should have a document that we sign off on that includes all the compensation or benefit increases that this board or prior boards have agreed to over time.
Yeah. I agree.
So, are you willing to have that done in-house? Have this updated with some of those changes that have happened over time, including then the language on?
My guess is we can contact, Braun Kendrick
Has
as
it.
the original author, so they probably have the Word document.
Okay,
And I can get that from them, and then I think I've made notes, and we got.
Yeah, we got
Yeah, we don't
notes.
have a-
Information that,
They don't need to review it, do they?
no, I'm just looking.
No,
at
no, I
where-
just
where
wondered
is
if
it?
they needed to. you
where's the
know.
original source?
Yeah,
So we don't have to start from scratch.
Right.
or, in 10 minutes, because you type
Very
100
fast.
words a minute,
Very fast.
so I reproduce it in a Word document.
100 words.
All right, so I guess.
Go Tara.
That was 17 with 8 mistakes.
60.
With some discussion from your side.
Fast.
With some discussion from the manager's side, some from the board side, I'm just trying to recapture things. What we've agreed to is the severance and the 3% salary raise. Is that acceptable in principle with you? That we can,
Yes, and I recognize that the severance piece requires another vote, and it can go either way.
okay.
That's just
Okay.
2 things. he said.
Anything else on contract, compensation?
Nope.
I think we're good.
Not fun stuff to work through.
Well, it was honest.
In that I appreciate.
I didn't-
All right, so that, unless there's objections, we'll move us on,
Back to Mr. Ward.
yeah, to extended public comment, which is restricted to 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, come on.
Hey, we
Regarding,
gave him enough time for a parable.
regarding any issue, if you do speak to the board or public, please state your name and address for the record. Extended public comment, opening at 9:08
These
PM.
guys had 10 months to prepare for this.
Thanks again. Norm Worley, 685 Union Township. First of all, I just want to compliment the board tonight. I think it was a very lively discussion. I was impressed with the fact that differences of opinion were valued. People were listening to one another. There was definitely respect. People were, debating the issues, and also taking into consideration what the public was asking for. So I commend you on the process tonight. I was really impressed with that. And as a citizen and as a former board member, I just want to say that I think that Union Township is very fortunate and blessed to have someone of Mark Strudriver's abilities, credentials, experience. Very fortunate to have him. And I think whatever it takes to keep him here, I think that the citizens would certainly support that, and it's a board that should be supported. Now I even forget why I was here.
Your subdivision.
So, anyway, the residents also wanted me to just talk a little bit about the fact that in subdivision, when there's a road repair that needs to be done, it's 100% of the cost rates put onto the homeowners, to the lot owners there. And, initially when a subdivision is started, the developer, from what I understand, pays for the roads, pays for, the infrastructure
Right.
to some extent, has to pay for all that. Okay, so that's the setup of subdivision. Once that subdivision is established, the road commission comes in and plows the roads. They make repairs on the roads in terms of if there's, any patching of the holes, any cracks and seal. They come in and take care of all that. But when it comes to then the road needing to be repaired in the event that we're talking about now, this is going to be run and paved, et cetera, then it becomes the lot owners, the homeowners' bill to have to foot completely. And to give you an idea, so like several years ago, Millbrook Road, which runs perpendicular to Carriage Lane, that was having to be repaved. They did a pave over, and there was no cost to it, so that was taken care of. But now we want to get Carriage Lane to be done, and Carriage Lane is kind of unique because it's not like that typical subdivision where it dead ends, there's a cul-de-sac, et cetera. It's kind of a through section. So there's people on other roads that come in through Carriage Lane and utilize it, who aren't going to have to be footing the bill for the road, but they get to utilize the benefit of the road. It's also an asset for the township, because every time we repair the road, we're no longer in that 9 or 10 number that in terms of the worst roads in the township. It becomes an asset for the township. So one of the things that what I would suggest and respectfully request of the board is that maybe at some point, have some discussion regarding how the subdivisions get paid for. We touched on that in the previous board, but we never had any closure to it, so we never got any conclusion on that whatsoever. So what they would like to see is that if perhaps the cost would be split and shared, maybe like a third for the road commission, a third for the township, and maybe a third to the residents. That might be more palatable, and also might speed up in other subdivisions to want to get the roads done. Because in our situation, we have 94% of the people wanting it, but in other subdivisions, you just need 51%, and it becomes a real squabble between the neighbors. And I think that type of dissension shouldn't have to exist. So I would just ask, maybe that's something you can perhaps put in a future docket and on your agenda, and maybe just talk about how these roads get paid for in the future. But what you've been doing, I know you're trying to expedite this on our behalf, and I really appreciate that. I also know that what Mark was saying is completely right. You need to do your due diligence. There are several steps involved in this. It is about liability. You want to make sure you're increasing people's tax base, so you really want to make sure you're doing it right. So I understand the thoroughness that has to be done here, but it is a cumbersome process when neighbors are trying to get the roads paid. So there's some things to consider, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thanks, Norm.
Thank you, Norm. You used all 5 minutes, too. I was just about to say
Right
something.
there. Perfect.
Yeah, you did great. Thank you for those words. All right, looking for additional public comments. Seeing no one else available or coming forward, we'll close extended public comment at 9:14. That moves us to manager's comments. You have the floor.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Final board member comment. Trustee Howitt?
I saw the email where we're gonna be getting $1,424,000 in stimulus money. I think we need to start maybe having a process to how we're gonna spend that. I think we need to, if it's a separate meeting that we need to have, let's start throwing some ideas out and figuring out what we're gonna do with it. A lot of townships didn't even apply for it.
Go figure that one.
Well, they just didn't have the staff like we do. You know, they just,
And know how.
some people probably just thought, well, we're not gonna get enough, so who cares?
I actually think the governors, they got a few people together and they actually contacted the township. They got that number way up.
I'm done.
Thank you. Clerk Cody?
Waited too long. Okay. So I agree with Norm, and I would like to see this added to a future meeting, maybe a work session, and a work session with trustee Hauk's comment. Also, maybe on a Wednesday night, around this time, on a, not a regular meeting day. Couple other things, you know, like the solar and stuff like that. Added to a work session, discussion. Thanks.
Trustee Brown, AKA Smith?
Blonde.
I'm really sorry, I can't let it go.
Yeah, that's okay.
You missed blonde tonight.
I just want to thank everybody, and I'm gonna spin off what Norm said. A great conversation tonight, great working with everybody, and Mark, I just want to formally, just in front of everyone, coming from me, to thank you personally for the job that you do. And that's coming from me personally. Norm, it's nice to have you back in the room, and I would have loved to work with you, I can tell you that right now, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to see you again.
Hey, meetings took a lot longer with them.
Yes. Yes.
But nice to have you back representing your neighbors, and thank you. We look forward to doing that project.
Trustee Bills?
I would like to congratulate and thank Mark Stuhldreher for being the manager. He's awesome. And on the new benefits package, also a thank you for the great job you do, sir. And I would like to echo Trustee Hauk and Trustee Cody that we need a special meeting to discuss the ARPA funds. I'm sorry, Clerk Cody, that discuss the ARPA fund use. And I really want to focus on pathways. I think we can do something there, and also increasing our green spaces. As we have previously discussed, especially Trustee Thuring and myself, when we mentioned just some pocket parks or anything like that that would increase the accessibility to all of the township's citizens. And I think that's of paramount importance with these funds. It's not free money, but it's gonna be play money, kind of. So we really wanna be able to do our wants, not necessarily our needs with this, I think, and that's where I'm at. So, and also, winter's coming. Labor Day's over. That's all I've got.
Wow, you usually bring sunshine on a cloudy
Sorry.
day. And
I
now-
don't, September's where the
Man.
depression begins, and it comes back around March 21st, okay?
Boy, what's gonna
This is
happen in
Mark's
November?
favorite time of year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get fired up.
Trustee Thuring?
Mark, thank you again, man.
Thank you.
As they said, for all that you do. I'm glad that you're here with us. The other thing I'd like to say is I would like to have more discussion based on what Norm had talked about. Getting the discussion started is I think the right thing to do. Whether it leads into something, we'll know as we go. So, thank you.
Treasurer Rice?
Just pay your taxes, and thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Think about the liaison spot for Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. And I want to thank you too, Mark. I enjoyed working with you, and both on an individual level and as a board. And I feel blessed to have you here. Make our job easier. Norm, I'm glad you're here tonight. And then regarding the what Dr. Worley brought up regarding the paving assessments, I actually started asking a little bit, trying to learn about this maybe a month ago, and I learned things that didn't realize on how it all works. And so I'm happy to have that discussion also.
I'd love to have that discussion.
So with that, that finishes our agenda items. We have no closed session. I'd be happy to take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Support?
Motion by Rice, support by Bills to adjourn. Lengthy discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion.
You don't understand how funny this is. Last.
Motion to adjourn passes unanimously.